And clearly, from watching your post on Facebook and your tweets, you clearly did monitor the flag bearer of the new Patriotic Party, who's Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. What are your impressions, first of all?
Well, so good morning to your listeners and your producer as well. Am I clear? Because I'm getting the.
Yes, you're clear. We can hear you clearly.
All right, okay, that's fine. So, well, the speech was promised to be bold, more like a vision to bold solutions for the future. I must say, though, that not necessarily. There weren't any new things. There were just a rehash of some of the very things that the NPP had promised much earlier, I think in 2015, especially on the issue on moving from production to taxation to production. I say that because most of the taxes that were supposed to be scrapped were not the creation of any other administration, but the creation of this very administration. The only probably novel thing within the tax bracket or tax promises had to do with the flat tax, which incidentally, by the way, was one of the things that Bawumia'S President living memory actually introduced for small businesses whose threshold at the time, annual threshold at the time was about 10,000 Ghana cedis at the time. I remember very well. I was sitting with him in the car, going to his hometown for some other project. I was leading a project for an American high school. We were building computer labs in the country. Actually, that's when he was education minister, right? Then we stopped by some what's it called, orange sellers and asked them what they did with the oranges, the pop-ups, and they said they just threw it away. So we got into a conversation about how to ensure that their produce do not go bad, and then also they complained about tax tolls that we were paying. And then we got into a conversation, and at the time I knew about Estonia, which incidentally was a place of low taxes. And so I suggested that. And they said, well, they're looking great. Incidentally, not long after, he applied 3% or so flat tax. And I was quite happy right away. Anyway, fast forward. So the only interesting thing about taxation that Dr. Bawumia spoke was the flat tax, which is a good thing because you see, a flat tax really is like even this graduated. Depending on how much you earn, depending on the annual turnover of a company, it's simple. It's very easy to collect, rather than this confusing flat input-output thing. So that's by way of fiscal issues that I thought were in the bill. Otherwise, a lot of it was also based on what I'll say, hope to do things that are different from his boss. That's Bawumia'S boss, which is the Namado, or indeed his government, which is still part of. So those are just introductory impressions. Otherwise, it was a lot of gusto. It was also explained with a lot of gusto, a lot of confidence, and all of that, which are usual of me, by the way. So So if you're asking me what I thought about the speech, because it didn't. Of course, it's a continuation of the things that have been promised, which some of them haven't been delivered, especially taxation. Right.
Well, let me then go to, because if the content that was promised was nothing new, promising to scrap things that this government has done, then what about the approach in itself? Because questions have been raised about even him suggesting that he's a driver's mate and sounding more like a change candidate, an opposition candidate. In fact, this morning I was just speaking to the national chairman of the NDC, who says he wouldn't even mind advising former President Mahama to recruit him to be a campaign manager because he's doing their job effectively for them. How did that come across to you?
Well, as you know, I put it on my Facebook post and that I thought that the first hour was not needed. The first hour was wasted on things we've heard before. Well, but you can give it to a politician, right? He has an opportunity. He needs to rehash a few things, which was not necessarily bad. But I mean, I thought in terms of strategy, if I were part of the big list, I wouldn't advise that I spend 1 hour, 16 minutes on rehashing things we know already. But he did that. Now, the problem with the approach of suggesting that, well, look, there were things that went south, and some of them essentially were because he wasn't in the seat. I can relate to some of those. A few of those, I have had conversations with him directly on a number of projects that I thought were badly executed, badly thought of, and I knew he had no hand in them. But you see, once you are accepting of the gates, or what I call the assets of a government, you must necessarily be interested in the liabilities as well. Because if you said that your advice was sound and you're grateful for some, I can understand that not all advice you give that actually will be taken. But at least for me, I thought that one of the best ways out for him was to have said, look, yeah, there are mistakes. And we apologize for those mistakes, even though I wasn't party to some of them. I mean, a language like that is so serene. It gladdens people's hearts. Even your die-hard opponents will say, okay, at least he's offered some sort of apology. Because, look, my brother, what we went through and what we are going through has never happened before. Let's not kid ourselves. This was a situation where our funds, our investments, the savings were decapitated. In fact, I call it pickpocket because essentially what it meant, without being told that this will happen to you, because of the bad nature of the way that the economy had been handled by the finance ministry and the Bank of Ghana governor, especially, we were at sea. We still are at sea. That's why I find it annoying to be hearing that we are turning the corner when we know what is really responsible for these little gains we are looking at, especially because of the IMF. But the chunk of the problem still exists in debt exchange, right? Because now your money that you had been obviously the profitability of your money has been called into question, and you don't even know whether there will be another debt exchange in 2025 or 2026 because you can't borrow, right? As you speak, because the government has no money, no source of raising revenue. That's how come they are trying to charge part on electricity, right? So if you are telling me that yeah, there were problems, but probably not. I think a better way out is to say that look, you are sorry. All the decisions were taken and you did not take part in it, but you are sorry. You hope that things will go well. But to defend the Bank of Ghana governor, I found that quite unnerving to listen. I got my stomach wrenching. I was like, what the hell is my brother doing? What is this whole thing about whitewashing the Bank of Ghana governor? The one single entity that created the fiscal hole of 60 billion Ghana cedis in our finances, claiming that if they had not done it, would have been at sea. First of all, who caused it? It was the delinquency of the finance ministry, the wastefulness of the government that led us to that hole that was created. Talk about this Russia-Ukraine nonsense. I mean, I get irritated, but I think I've reached my limit when it comes to getting angry with those. But everybody knows, as I made in that Facebook post, Ghana became was topping all the inglorious macroeconomic bad figures that you could think of. Why? Senegal didn't get COVID, Nigeria didn't get COVID, even Burkina here, Togo here didn't get COVID. How come all their economic indicators were looking better than ours? So a bit of that also doesn't evoke some sincerity, and that's a bit unfair for us those listening. So I think that a bit of the I think you'd have been nicer to suggest that look, things went south, and I'm sorry for some of the decisions that were taken. Even if you had said that, you would have covered whether it was part or not part, rather than say that yeah, because I'm not in the driving seat, I did, especially when you were extolled as the best brains economically. I don't think that really gelled with a lot of people. I'm not too sure.
See, because not only did he do that on the economic, I realized that in order to escape responsibility, one of the things he did was to attempt to make comparisons with the record of the National Democratic Congress. He said
Again,
we
it
did
was
better.
not needed. Those records are still, it doesn't even make sense. You know why? Because the point is that at the end of the day, those exchange rate figures you are talking about, what is it today? How much am I paying for this dollar? Almost 13 cities, right? I mean, and it was not that. It was that much. So whether it was using at a slower rate or going at a faster rate, my brother, it's the pocket that actually makes most of this thing. So I'm a bit worried that I never really thought he was going to go into those conversations because I don't think that is needed at all. I think I congratulate him though for not singularly putting about Mahama all the time, which I think he did for once, not doing that much. But this comparison about records, they are not needed. We are at war economically, and now we need to get out of war. You led us into that abyss. You need to take us out. No references to comparisons here and there. Because everybody make up.
But has he carved a path out that you agree with? From listening to his vision, if the main issue is the economy, did you see a clear path out of these difficulties from the vision you listened to?
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, the issues around the private sector, public sector collaboration, which is another thing that this government has promised forever, but rather is better at creating chronic capitalist scams in order to take money away from the pot. Because they've done a number of public-private related projects, by the way. I mean, look at this assignment lances and then this Kelly TV. At the end of the day, these are public-private projects, but are they sensible? Are they sound? No. To be fair, look, and I can say authoritatively that I think Bawumia naturally isn't corrupt. So I'm sure he's going to look into making sure that before public-private partnership agreements are struck, they'll be above board. But anyway, that's another conversation. We'll come to whether he'd have the freedom to do that. Because whoever finances your campaign probably would also have a hold on you. But isn't that for all parties, by the way? But I think we can come to that. So I think the public-private partnership, especially for the construction of critical infrastructure like roads, bridges, and schools, even hospitals, should be done properly. And I think a 70-30 percentage combination between the private sector taking 70% of it and the public sector just taking 30% will be a fine balance. But the state cannot continuously support and fund this thing. That doesn't make sense. But when the state does it, people steal a bit, 10%, 15% will be stolen. The value will not be, the structures will not be done properly. Even if they are done well, they will not be maintained well. So I like that. The other thing I think, obviously, I'm talking about the taxes, right? Flat taxes is a useful thing. Then, of course, maybe the 50 ministers. 50 ministers is a good thing, and I think that John has also promised 60. So yeah, I mean, a few of those things ahead, which are quite motivating enough, really.
And let me conclude by then stating the fact that for everybody, it all then comes down back to credibility of the person who is speaking. Do you agree with those who suggest that he's done too much damage to his credibility for him to be trusted with any of these things?
I think I can answer that question straight ahead. I was looking at some of the polls after the speech, and I was quite worried for him because it meant. But anyway, these are early days yet. That's why I'm saying that on the credibility question, I think he would have helped a whole lot if he had said, look, I may not have taken certain decisions, but I take one for the group, which is I'm sorry. Which I suspect was something the finance minister did when he appeared before during the censure motion, right? He said he was sorry. And I think that if we had that from him, I was actually expecting that from Dr. Bawumia, because I thought he was more likely to do it than any other politician. But the moment he didn't do that and started saying, well, others are responsible and he's not in the driving seat, it damages a bit of the credibility, you know, and I hope he really shouldn't have said those things.
Mr. Cudjoe, thank you very much for speaking to us.
My pleasure.
Always a pleasure talking to Mr. Franklin Cudjoe, who is founding president for IMANI Africa. They are a policy think tank. We'll take a break. When we come back, we have Mr. Raymond Acha.